Chapter 6. Like a candle. Hopefully being lit and not snuffed out.
I know this is what we were planning for, but I'm worried about taking you to this scene with me.
I didn't expect a murder case when I started all this.
Well, Cerna averages about 2 homicides per day. High for the day side. Low if we're comparing to the night side.
Do you suspect the connections with Delphine contribute?
Difficult to say for sure, but most likely. Under normal circumstances, I wouldn't even be helping with these now that I'm assigned as your protective agent. But given that we planned for this, and the short staffing. Anyway, look. The SI department tends to get a lot of the more serious crimes. Criminals with Psi aren't exactly using it for illegal parking.
That seems like a way better use of Psi, to be honest.
What disturbs me is that Esper-related violent crimes are on the rise.
That should disturb everyone, but it's especially bad news for someone like me.
It's a bit of a dilemma, isn't it? More Espers out here means more Esper crime. Not because Espers are inherently bad, but because they're inherently human. And humans make bad decisions. But it also means we need more Espers out here to deal with those situations, because your average SD officer or SI officer can't always handle an angry or desperate telekinetic.
Contradictions like this mean there are other influences and problems that need to be solved as well. Things that can't be solved by keeping Espers locked away.
Oh, there definitely are. If Espers didn't have to hide, they wouldn't be as likely to get involved in things they shouldn't. Anyway, I'm sure it's unnerving for you that violent crimes seem more prevalent once you're on the inside. But in spite of it, just remember, there are millions of people in this city, and most of them did not get murdered today.
Cold comfort for the ones that did. Do we get more details on the crime scene before we get there this time?
I have minimal information right now, but yes, I was going to brief you before we got there. I know they're reading high psi waves there, which indicates Esper involvement. The victims are related, and one is a P-class individual. The psi waves our scans pick up aren't the same as psychometric echoes, which are more of an imprint in space. A lingering psi wave is much more analogous to a fingerprint because they relate back to specific individuals.
But there's no way to use it as an identifier, I guess.
We have a database of them actually, but it's quite small and not always as useful as you'd think. For instance, Rooks don't tend to leave strong psi fingerprints because their psionic energy is more turned inward.
Huh. That's interesting.
Look, you need to be prepared for this one, okay? You're going as a crime scene observer, and you'll have to look through this place this time. And well, there are still 2 bodies there. You may find it disturbing.
What's good in this situation? Confidence or flexibility? If you put forth a confident spirit, maybe it'll come forth in your actions somehow. Hopefully. Instead of like, well, you know, it is what it is. Let's try confident, I guess. I can handle it. I've mentally prepared myself this time.
I know you can handle it, but it's always harder than you expect.
Different or not, it's not the first crime scene I've been to. And not the first psychometric experience, assuming I have one.
That's true, but...
Reuben, I can handle it. I will handle it. I have to. Please, have faith in me. This won't be like the last time.
It's not that I don't have faith in you, Morgan. However...
I'm not as fragile as you think, I promise. I understand that you've only seen me at my weakest since I arrived. When I'm scared and overwhelmed, I sometimes break down. Believe me when I say I'm very aware that I don't always handle the unexpected in the best possible way. I haven't exactly demonstrated a lot of strength or ability to manage my emotions. I get it.
That's not true at all, Morgan. And that's not why I'm concerned.
I am prepared for this. I just feel comfortable being vulnerable around you, but I'm not vulnerable all the time.
None of that is my concern. I've seen you struggle and immediately pick yourself up. I am well aware that you're strong. But I also know that crime scenes like this are rough for people who aren't used to them. Rookies struggle, and they train for this. It can be intense, and you won't understand what it's like until you get there. Morgan, I've seen crime scenes that were difficult for me, and I've been doing this for a while. We see the worst there is, and we have to stay level-headed and composed. That's harder than people think. And I know you. You'll try to push through no matter how hard it is. If you show any weakness, you'll beat yourself up. Because you always do. That's my concern. I'd be worried about anyone going to their first scene as an investigator. It has nothing to do with strength or weakness.
Okay, that was a good talk. In that case, any strategies? Alright, since I don't have official training for this like a normal rookie, any strategies for coping if it gets rough?
In the moment. Take a breath and step outside if you need to. It's better to have a private moment than to lose it in front of everyone. And it's not uncommon for newcomers to need some space or a breather. Don't feel bad if you need that. Just do it. Don't try to push through. Take your time. And if it's rough, don't keep it bottled up after it's all over. Everyone copes differently. They go for walks, they go for a workout after a long day. Or they talk. Just be open about what you need, and remember to talk about it if it's too upsetting. You didn't actually sign up for this, not as anything more than a necessary evil. So it's not like you've been training and expecting this like others. You were thrown in head first, so finding your footing may take more time. And that's fine.
Alright. I'll keep all that in mind and try to pace myself. But for the record, I think I've demonstrated I don't keep things bottled up. I'm way more likely to humiliate myself by going to pieces.
See? That. It's not embarrassing to have an emotional response. So stop thinking of it that way.
Fine, fine. I totally didn't embarrass myself last time. That was all in my head and no one was judging me.
If they were, that's on them. I wasn't judging.
And of course, your opinion is what matters.
I'd like to think so.
Don't worry. I'm going to be fine.
I know you will be.
Oh, This is a nice apartment, isn't it? I do like this layout. The crime scene, when we arrived at it, was chaotic, much more so than the other one. Much of the chaos was outside it since there were onlookers this time. We had to push through them first. There were more people inside than last time, too. Winter met us at the door, and we hovered there while he caught us up on the situation. Near the door, everything looked fine, but the other side of the room was a mess. Overturned chairs, broken glass.
Looks like there was a pretty bad confrontation. The rest of the place is worse. We think it started in the kitchen and dining nook, then moved this way. Victims? 2 adults. Nicholas and Jordan Emerson. 48 and 43, respectively. Cousins. Both worked at Analytech as mid-tier data analysts. So far, there are no signs of forced entry, but it does seem someone went out one of the windows. Neighbors are saying they didn't see anything out of the ordinary in the lobby or hall. Injuries on both victims appear to be sonic-based. We aren't sure how they fought back so hard against people who were armed.
You don't, eh? Okay, sonic weapons. Just wanted to make sure.
Did the neighbors hear anything at least? It's a new building, and a lot of the adjacent flats are still vacant. 2 neighbors heard a disturbance, but the victims were known to be rowdy, so it didn't immediately raise questions. Murder weapon. We did find one. Class 07 sonic handgun. Would have been quiet enough that neighbors wouldn't hear the blast. Class 07? How did someone get their hands on one of those? Don't know. It's already been turned in, and they're trying to find out where it came from.
It was illegal for civilians to be in possession of sonic weapons. I didn't know much about their classifications, but Reuben certainly seemed startled by that.
Anyway, Jordan Emerson was a known pseudo-Esper, but the psi waves through the place are beyond what you'd expect for someone of that level. So we're assuming an Esper perpetrator. Or multiple. They've already done a full sweep of the place since they knew you'd be bringing a consultant with you. Alright, I'll have a look around. Morgan...
I'll go at my own pace, if that's okay. I'm fine, but I want to take my time and look around properly. If I need to step outside, I will.
Understood. Tell me if you need anything.
I will, but I'll be okay. I'm not nervous. I mean, I was nervous, but I didn't need to be babysat. Probably. The two of them left me near the entrance, reluctantly on Reuben's part, it seemed. And I let out a soft sigh when they were gone. I found a place where I could stand uninterrupted to survey the room. Ooh, look at those pretty threads. Closing my eyes, I focused on the residual psi in the room. And there they were. Psionic threads, the echoes of the previous occupants and what they left behind. I sensed them before I saw them, but they gradually became clear in my mind until I could see them even with my eyes open. Eyes open? They gradually became clear in my mind until I could see them even with my eyes open. Okay. Yeah, I gotcha. I was expecting it to say with my eyes closed, so I was like, eyes open? There were so many weaving their way through the flat. Some were faint, some vivid and almost pulsating. Even without touching them, I could now somewhat sense what events they connected to. Near the kitchen were... laughter, voices. A party, I thought. An old memory. Snippets of conversation reflecting echoes of their lives. Lives that had now ended in the most terrible of ways. I shook that thought off and took a deep breath before leaving my spot and moving through the apartment. The brightest threads I wanted to leave for later. Those I suspected might be the important ones. Voices flitted through my mind as I wandered through. There were brief images, memories. I tried to ignore the sadness creeping up on me. This was work. I could worry about the emotions later. For now, I needed to focus on whatever information I was getting. Their jobs were boring. Nicholas hated his manager. The two of them were being recruited for another project. Something outside of work, but it was through someone they knew at work. There was something odd about that. Something... A flash of anger hit me unexpectedly. Anger deep enough and dark enough that I gasped at the sudden intrusion and stopped in my tracks. I let out a shaky breath as I stepped back away from that spot, trying to identify which thread it had come from. Reuben, I realized, had been nearby watching. He was at my side in an instant. I was side-eyeing him pretty hard. Bombastic side-eye. But... in fairness, I had disrupted the crime scene last time, so it's not like his concerns weren't unwarranted. And I knew he wanted to be nearby to help me if I needed it. This time I was likely to stumble on something way worse than I had last time because I was looking for it. Well, I did get the sense he might not be fretting as much if it was someone other than me. That was... not a bad thought, but still. I might have to suggest he give me some space. Very nicely, of course.
What is it?
Don't be too surprised now, but I had a minor psychometric experience. He gave me a look that told me he immediately understood what I was communicating with that tone of voice.
Okay, I get the message. I'm hovering.
A little. And how did you get to my side that fast? I didn't even see you move, just saw a sort of dark blur that flew at me.
That was some impressive speed walking. Your protective instinct is amazing. Uh-huh. Okay, I get it. But I'm just... concerned.
I like that Winter joined in on the teasing this time. There's nothing to be concerned about for now. I'm simply getting a feel for things. There are a lot of psionic threads here. Some particularly vibrant ones. I'm sussing out the less distinct ones first, but I got a little hit of emotion I wasn't expecting, that's all. Do you want me to let you know before I walk face first into one of the bigger ones?
You're talking about them like you have a map of where they are.
Well, I mean, yeah. Most of the brighter ones are closer to where the damage is. Over here, I think it's just echoes left over from day-to-day life. I shrugged.
What does that mean? No one can see.
Queen rank? They both paused, then glanced at each other as if just now realizing what that might mean for my abilities.
We may need some time to get used to having someone of your caliber with us. It sounds like it's going to be quite a different experience from what we're used to.
Fair. But it is what it is. And I can see Psy, so... However, standing here isn't doing us any good, and I don't think poking these minor echoes with a stick will either. I need to take a look at one of the brighter ones over there.
If you can see these things and know that you may have a stronger experience before walking into them, it might be best for us to plan accordingly. We don't normally get the opportunity, but in this case... Should we clear the room?
I don't think you need to go that far. Everyone knows why I'm here. If I have an uncomfortable experience this time, it shouldn't surprise them.
Fine, but I want to stay nearby this time, just in case.
I narrowed my eyes for a moment, considering whether I wanted to protest that. I didn't know that they gave most of their Espers moral support, but maybe I should let him have this one. He was worried about me, and I didn't think it was just about my lack of experience as a consultant, or the impact to their reputation for bringing me. He was worried about me, and I didn't entirely dislike that feeling. He really does hover, though. But it was a little endearing. Alright, fine. You can lurk. Out of my line of sight. I walked past him and toward the other side of the flat before he could respond, trailing my fingers through one of the thin, bright threads. This was getting closer to the incident, I thought. There was faint anxiety in these echoes, confusion, then fear. And oddly an unexpected smell? It hit me out of nowhere, a copper scent mixed with something citrusy and astringent. At first I thought it was a part of the theokinetic experience, but I realized I was actually smelling something. I paused and put a hand to my nose, glancing back at Reuben. Do you smell... danger? And everything hit me at once. There was a burning in my throat and an explosion of pain in my temple. Dizziness slammed into me and sent me reeling into a cabinet.
Morgan!
Stay back! I could feel it building before it happened and only just managed to get the sluggish warning out before my sigh exploded. It ripped out of me as if by an outside force and went spiraling away like a violent whirlwind. I could sense it picking up things and flinging them around, but I couldn't stop it. My knees hit the floor as I gagged and tried to drag air back into my lungs, but I couldn't breathe. Every psychometric thread in the room zipped toward me at once as if magnetized by my out-of-control sigh. They wrapped themselves around me, squeezing my already constricted lungs and flooding my mind with voices, images, memories, feelings. Rage, terror, anguish, recognition, pain, regret. Someone was pleading. There was a hysterical laugh. I couldn't make sense of it at all. There were flashes of violence, fighting. So many people. Why were there so many people? I couldn't see faces, just silhouetted forms glowing bright in my mind. Multiple Espers. There was someone raising a weapon, pointing it right at me, or the me in the vision. Something hit me hard and my body went numb. Well, that didn't quite go according to plan, did it? Everything faded to black and silence, and the visions were over. Oh, we're in the bunker. That's fun. When I woke up, I let out a groan and turned over. Realizing I wasn't at home, I sat up with one hand to my head, feeling like I had the worst hangover. It looked like I was in some sort of meeting area? What the... Oh, I guess I got you in that, eh? Poor guy's got a band-aid. Reuben was at my side in a second. Where am I?
Office. We took you to a conference room to recover.
What happened?
It appeared to be a minor power surge. You're fine, but we had to stun you to get it to stop. Sorry about that.
Stun me? That must have been what happened there at the very end. Ugh, I have the worst headache.
You're lucky that's all you have.
I looked at him from between my fingers. Something about his tone of voice, and then I realized... What happened?
Exactly what I said. There was a...
I meant to your face! There was a small dermal patch on his cheek, and I instantly knew. I reached for it, letting my fingers light against his face. Did I do that?
There were some minor injuries from debris. Nothing serious.
Even so. He took my hand and pulled it away from his face, but didn't release it.
The crime scene had some damage, and forensics, well, they're not happy. This isn't the first time you...
Screwed up a crime scene? Last time my Psy messed up their scans, yeah?
What happened today, Morgan? Phil is... concerned that you might not be able to handle these psychometric visions.
No! This wasn't related to a vision at all. It's not like last time where I panicked or something.
We didn't take you to the hospital because you didn't seem to be harmed, and we wanted to keep this quiet, but...
I can't explain what happened, but this wasn't caused by me not being able to handle a psychometric experience, Reuben.
Then what caused you to spiral into a power surge?
I don't... know. I hadn't even touched the brightest psionic echoes yet. I was hit by a powerful smell that I thought was theokinetic in origin. I turned to you to mention it, and... then... my Psy just... exploded. There didn't seem to be a catalyst for it as far as I can tell.
F-class are known to have unstable Psy.
Winter, I realized, was on the other side of the room, leaning against the wall, watching us. The look on his face wasn't... encouraging. I don't think this was just some sort of Psy instability, Winter. It's hard to put into words, but I was absolutely in control right up until I wasn't. It's not like I was struggling then lost it. I wasn't at all upset, and... I don't know, something felt off.
What does that mean?
If I knew what it meant, I would be more clear.
Was it possible you were just upset? Stress from the scene? F-class Espers are also particularly sensitive to emotions.
No, I wasn't just upset or stressed. I was barely stressed at all. Certainly not to the point my Psy would go out of control. If that level of upset was enough to trigger a power surge, I should be surging all the time.
I agree with you. You didn't look emotional at all when this hit. Not everyone looks upset when they're anxious, Reuben.
Have you seen Morgan when she's upset? I gritted my teeth, wishing I could tell him that I was getting upset right now. Winter, this is like the most aggro you've been to me this entire game, and I'm not used to it. But it was his job to ask questions, and I shouldn't get annoyed with him. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice from showing the irritation. I'm saying I wasn't upset or emotional. I have had a power surge before, and I know what it feels like to lose control that way. This was not like that.
I understand.
No, you don't, Winter. You don't understand because you aren't an Esper. No offense. You don't know what this feels like, looks like, or anything. I do. I have been terrified enough to lose control multiple times. This wasn't the same.
I'm not trying to accuse.
Maybe not, but it feels like you've already decided what happened. And you're talking over me when I've said already that I was perfectly calm at the scene. Past power surges felt like my abilities spilling over, expanding beyond what I could contain. This felt like something reaching inside me and ripping my Psy out, no matter how hard I tried to hold on to it. It was like it was triggered from the outside this time.
You mentioned encountering some kind of smell right before it happened. One you didn't think was theokinetic.
That's right.
Maybe we should have them do a chemical analysis at the scene. just to rule out that possibility. A chemical that induced a power surge.
Have you heard of psi weaponry, Winter?
We need to be certain. Morgan was the only Esper at the scene, so... If not that, we may need to consider the possibility of a psionic trap of some kind.
Exactly.
Why would anyone leave that kind of trap at the scene? That makes no sense, and you're not going to be able to convince anyone.
He cut himself off when Reuben glared at him. For a moment, it felt like a battle of wills going on before Winter sighed.
Oh, fine. I'll go talk to the team. Not sure what I should be telling them, but I'll handle it.
He disappeared, leaving me and Reuben alone. He seems... upset.
Just frustrated. It's not your fault.
I think it is.
Look, this sort of thing is something we should get used to. If we want Espers involved more frequently in investigations, we have to accept that there will be accidents.
Thank you for taking me seriously on this one.
Hey, of course I'm going to take you seriously. You've been working damn hard to learn about your abilities, and you've had plenty of emotional moments that didn't result in something like this. I'm inclined to give the benefit of the doubt here.
Thanks anyway.
If we're considering an outside contaminant, then it may be difficult to schedule another visit for you to finish your psychometric reading.
Oh, I don't think that's needed. During that surge, it was sort of like all the threads in that place just snapped into me. I got a lot of information. It's a bit of a jumble, so it may take time to work through everything I saw.
Oh, that's actually good news. I didn't think you'd seen anything. We can go through it all together then. Was there anything that stood out? Any faces?
No faces, but there are a couple of things I remember. There were a lot more people involved in this than I thought. I counted at least 4 Espers. There might have been more.
4?
And another thing. I'm certain the victims recognized the intruders. Some of them, anyway. There were a lot of emotions mixed in with the images. Fear, rage, sadness. Some of that sadness was coming from some of the intruders. Others felt cold, disconnected from the whole thing. It was almost like 2 totally different groups of intruders. The exact chronological events are still a little unclear. I may need some time to unwind all that.
Alright, this is good. This is useful. It certainly appears this wasn't a random attack based on what you've said so far.
Oh, that's right. Before the surge, I also got a snippet of a conversation about them both being involved in a new project. It wasn't work-related, but I'm not sure what it was. It was something that was going to be bringing in extra money. Probably experimentation.
We'll have to look into their recent activities then. We would have anyway, but this might give us a bit more direction.
He smiled slightly, moving a bit of hair out of my eyes.
You see, it's not all bad. This is helpful information. The fact they knew the intruders, the fact there were multiple suspects possibly with different motivations. New projects. Let's go up and add this to an official report. You feeling up for it?
Still woozy, but I think I can manage. Especially if it might allay some of Phil's concerns.
I think it will.
I'll try to sort out some of the rest of what I saw and heard. Any specifics I can dig out of the mess.
Excellent. Let's go upstairs.
I recovered from the power surge much faster this time. Almost no residual issues after a couple of hours. Girl is strong in this route. It hadn't even been that strong a power surge if I was comparing to the last big one where I, brought a building down on my head. The sonic stun gun left me feeling worse, but even that wasn't too bad. They'd used the low setting, just enough to knock me out. So at least writing the reports wasn't absolutely miserable. There had been a tense meeting with Phil, but he was mollified by some of the information I was able to pull out of my psychometric visions. And the possibility I'd encountered a psionic trap left by the attackers, though I wasn't sure how probable that theory was. But with the attackers being Espers, it wasn't out of the question. He did give me a stern warning that I could not cause another stir like the one today. I had useful information, but damaging the crime scene to get it wasn't an acceptable trade-off. I thought that was pretty fair, but Reuben defended me again. Even so, I was feeling pretty guilty by the time the meeting ended. Just knowing that others were seeing me and my involvement as a problem. That they were questioning if my contributions were worth it. It felt like Phil was regretting offering me this chance. Things weren't starting well, and people were doubting if this would work. Phil, Winter, everyone but Reuben. We were working at the office for a long time. They had set up a small workspace for me near Reuben's desk. I would have preferred to go home, but Reuben made a good point that it would be nice for people to see me working and being professional. Not hiding, as Winter put it. If I went and hid, it would seem like a bigger deal. I thought that he was probably right when I saw Phil lurking several times, his expression approving. Reuben was busy with calls and chasing down information, which left me on my own to continue organizing everything I'd seen. The more I went through it, the more details I was able to pull out. If I got a lot of useful information, maybe it would offset the problems I'd caused? I could only hope so. I was keeping a short list of clearer details I was able to fish out of the mess. That one of the attackers was a knight, and that's why there was no forced entry. That the attackers had been fighting each other, and that was what caused the damage to the flat. Interesting. Beyond that, most of what I could make out just supported other things I'd said already.
Ready to go home? You've been at it for a while.
I sat back and stretched the kinks out of my back, but went right back to typing on my interface without looking up. Sure. Let me finish up with these notes, then I'll send you what I have so far. He leaned against his desk to wait, then handed me my jacket as I stood.
Tough day, huh?
Yeah. I definitely didn't contribute to that on my own at all.
Come on, let's get home.
Much of the agents had cleared out by then, but there were a few stragglers. When Phil looked up at us from his office, I hazarded a wave. I didn't think he'd respond, but he just waved a hand my direction, lips twisted into a semi-smile. At least he didn't seem like the world's most disappointed uncle anymore. Win? Reuben and I passed Winter on our way out. He was standing with arms folded over his chest, looking at someone else's monitor, and stopped us as we neared him.
Toxicology is back, and they didn't find anything out of the ordinary. But it turns out that 2 of the initial responders also reported an odd smell in their reports.
Okay.
A metallic smell with a citrus quality. Same as Morgan. They said it was particularly strong when they first arrived on the scene. Neither reported any other symptoms, so I'm not sure it's connected to anything, but I've been doing a search on chemicals that can affect Espers, and the information is non-existent, of course.
Wonder if Magnus would be willing to, give me a little bit of archive information on that if they have any.
Right now, we're leaning toward either a personal loss of control or a psychic trap. We were reading extremely high residual psi waves at the scene. You said you can see psi, Morgan. Did you see anything unusual?
I don't know what a psychic trap looks like, so I can't say if what I saw is unusual or not.
It's also possible that it was just the exposure to the psi waves in general. Your psi is more sensitive than what we're used to, so we may need better protocols for introducing you to crime scenes, such as waiting for residual psi to dissipate first. If we frame it like that, then the blame's on us for this one. That's a good point. In both problem situations, we took Morgan to a crime scene only a few hours after the crimes occurred. That's enough for the average Esper, but maybe not a high-ranked one like Morgan. We'll have to be more careful going forward. That'll be my personal recommendation anyway.
Thank you for... He shrugged it off, nodding toward Reuben.
Reuben's been the one advocating for you all day. Thank him.
No. I'm thanking you. If you really thought I was a problem, I have a feeling you wouldn't be doing any of this.
Yeah, well, no one wants to see you fail. We're just all a little on edge, that's all.
Aw, Winter, there you are. He gave me a tired smile as he waved us away, saying he'd be staying a while longer. I was glad the entire thing hadn't crumbled from under me at once, but I felt bad about making extra work for people, even if I didn't think it was my fault. But I was happy they were willing to give me the benefit of the doubt. This time. I had a shower while Reuben made dinner, and I spent my entire shower going over what happened. The psychic trap thing was a convenient excuse for me, but if there was a bundle of psionic energy there, why hadn't I noticed it? I'd been aware of the threads and their position. Granted, I'd been looking for them. But some kind of large bundle of psi energy? I should have seen that too. What if we never found out for sure what happened? I would have to be careful going forward. I couldn't afford to mess up again. I couldn't afford to have everyone lose faith in my ability. And I couldn't get through this with just Reuben's support, grateful for it though I was. Whether it was a side trap or something else, I needed to keep control of these stupid abilities. I needed to be better at this. Resting my hand against the tile, I watched the water swirling down the drain, almost amused by how much that felt like my life at the moment. I was still on shaky ground, and I just had to find a way to stabilize the situation again. I shut the water off and stepped out of the shower. Dwelling on it wasn't going to help. I would just have to work harder. Much harder. I realized how hungry I was when I stepped into the hall and the smell of food hit me. Wandering into the kitchen, I watched Reuben for a moment. Something warm stirred in my chest as I thought about how staunchly he defended me today. I did my best to ignore that flutter as I went to lean against the bar.
It's almost ready. I decided I'd make gozleme. I hope you like it.
It smells wonderful. It looked like some kind of stuffed flatbread, and it really did smell amazing. I've never heard of that dish before.
Feeling better?
He pulled the last gozleme off the cooktop and moved it to a plate on the bench. I went to retrieve 2 glasses because it looked like he hadn't set out anything other than the food yet, and I needed something to do with my hands. Better. Just frustrated, of course. Helping aside, I hate not understanding my own abilities. I hate losing control like that.
It wasn't your fault.
I know. Or I believe that anyway. Her first affection. Yes. Always be affectionate. Thank you for believing me too, Reuben. I can't express how grateful I was to have you on my side today.
Look, in the few weeks I've been able to get to know you, I think I've come to understand what sort of person you are. If you really thought you'd lost control, you'd be open about it. Or at the very least, you'd be very bad at lying about it.
I think that's a compliment? I slid the glasses onto the bar, and Reuben paused what he was doing to look at me. He reached out, almost hesitating before he let a hand rest on my shoulder.
As worried as I was about you, you were calm at the crime scene. I can't say what happened, but what's the point of having an Esper consultant if we don't believe her about these things? You're new to all this, so it may take some time for you to describe exactly what you experience. Dismissing this as a failure on your part instead of a possible connection to the crime is short-sighted. Besides, I just believe you personally. And as you are aware, I trust my instincts.
I caught his hand in mine, giving it a squeeze. Having you defend me today meant a lot. I know Winter and Phil were just being cautious, and I understand that. But still.
Well,
He swallowed hard, and for a moment the air between us was heavy. With what? I wasn't sure. With something that made me all the more aware of that warm feeling fluttering through my chest. A feeling I kept telling myself I shouldn't let flourish, but that was flourishing anyway, and judging by the blush on Reuben's face, is also flourishing within his chest too. I mean, I wasn't sure if Reuben felt it too, but He was the one to break the mood when he cleared his throat and stepped away, giving me an awkward smile.
I got a message earlier that they've located a potential place for you here in my building. I'm not sure if they informed you yet. They've put a hold on the lease for now to try to reserve it for you. I know you're staying here for a while longer at Magnus's recommendation, but you can always start moving some things into the other place.
Not that I have things.
That at least is something we can remedy.
I hate the idea of paying rent in a place I can't live in.
That's only temporary, I hope. Maybe once or twice, and then hopefully you can move there and have your own space again. I'd like to hope you won't have to have protection longer than that. I don't mind having you here, but I'm sure you'll be grateful to have your own place as soon as it's possible.
He wasn't wrong, and yet there was an odd empty feeling at that thought as well. I didn't know how to express that, so I kept it to myself while we finally had dinner. As we tried several times to start up and hold on to conversations about things other than what happened today, I realized how difficult it was. It occupied so much space in my thoughts that I couldn't focus on other things, no matter how much Reuben tried to distract me with them. Reuben ended up explaining how psionic traps work. We talked about psi responses to chemicals or technology. He wanted to know more about the odd smell I'd encountered, though I didn't know why it was so important to him. When I asked, he said he was just curious, but I wasn't sure that was true. What if there was a weird smell that day back in school with Winter? What if? And I eventually decided to go to bed early because my brain felt it would explode from thinking about it too much. I was feeling sad and frustrated, and sleep seemed like a good way to forget it all for a while. Reuben said he still had some work to complete, but he stopped me before I disappeared down the hall. He gave me a lopsided smile when I paused and looked back at him.
Sorry for shooting you today.
Sorry for injuring you and destroying your crime scene. He laughed and shooed me away. I laid in bed for a long time, still thinking about it all even though I wanted to sleep. And every time thoughts about the stupid power surge died down, I'd just see Reuben's face in my mind. That was almost worse. I knew where this was heading. I could tell. This fondness, coupled with the fact I found him very attractive, was a dangerous combination. I liked him. I'd already told myself to be careful, and here I was, not being careful. It was too complicated. We hadn't known each other long. We had met in a weird way. Our relationship was odd. Something that had started as work, but had long since moved into a bizarre, undefined area. I rolled over, draping an arm over my eyes as I bit back a groan of frustration. Power surges and complicated relationships sounded like the absolute worst combination. It was a long time before I started to feel drowsy. And finally, everything faded into sleep, and I didn't have to think about any of it anymore for a while.